I didn't plan on coming home. I was already halfway to the office when I realized I'd left my flash drive, the one with my entire presentation, right on the bedroom desk next to my keys. I had a huge meeting in less than an hour. Normally, I'd call Josh and ask him to send it over, but his phone had died that morning. I remember him groaning about it at breakfast. So I turned around. I wasn't angry, just annoyed at myself. I kept rehearsing my opening lines in my head as I pulled into the driveway. Josh's car was still there, which surprised me. He told me he had errands to run. But maybe he decided to stay in. He'd been exhausted lately. I opened the door quietly and slipped off my heels. If he was napping, I didn't want to wake him. I figured I'd grab the drive, kiss him goodbye, and be out the door in 2 minutes. But I stopped cold halfway down the hallway. At first, I thought I heard voices. Then I realized I was hearing something else, a moan, soft, breathy, definitely feminine. Then a second sound, deeper, huskier, familiar. I stood frozen, one hand resting on the wall. My heart started thudding too loud for my own ears. No, it couldn't be. I told myself maybe he was watching something on his laptop. Maybe the TV was on. I tiptoed forward, my feet barely making a sound on the floor. But then I heard the unmistakable rhythm of the bed creaking. Slow, steady, followed by another loud gasp. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to unhear it. But my legs carried me forward. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and what I saw through the small opening took every bit of breath from my body. Josh, my husband, half-dressed, kneeling on our bed, and tangled beneath him, was her. I couldn't see her face at first, but her skin, her hair, her voice, all of it was so familiar. I covered my mouth with my hand and leaned against the wall to keep from collapsing. My stomach twisted into knots, and then she turned. Her face tilted up, laughing, giggling like it was a joke. And that's when I stopped breathing. It was Sophia, my sister, my younger sister, the one who cried in my arms after every breakup, the one I used to sneak snacks for when we were kids, the one who stood right beside me as my maid of honor when Josh and I got married, my little sister. I staggered back from the door like I'd been punched. My vision blurred. I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my purse. She looked relaxed, comfortable, like she belonged in that bed, like she'd been there before. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to scream and kick that door open and demand answers, but I didn't. I backed away slowly. My feet were like lead, dragging me toward the front door. I picked up my shoes with trembling fingers and opened the door just wide enough to slip out. I didn't slam it. I didn't make a sound. They didn't even know I was there. I climbed into my car and sat in the driver's seat, completely still. My brain was spinning, but my body felt frozen. I stared at the steering wheel, trying to breathe, trying to understand what I'd just seen. My husband, my sister, in our bed. The two people I loved most had ripped my heart in half in the span of 30 seconds. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just drove. Somewhere. Anywhere. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't stay. Because everything I thought I knew, everything I trusted, had shattered. And nothing would ever be the same again. They say hindsight is 20/20. I used to think that was just something people said after breakups. But now, after what I saw, I can't stop replaying every memory with Josh, every little moment, every word, every silence. And I keep asking myself, how didn't I see it? 6 years ago, I thought I hit the jackpot. Josh was charming, attentive, and nothing like the boys I had dated before. He was steady, kind, the kind of man who held open doors and remembered my favorite tea. We met at a fundraiser of all places. I was there as part of my company's outreach team, and he was volunteering to set up chairs. I remember how he made a joke about how I looked way too serious for a party. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he was easy to talk to. That night, he walked me to my car. 3 months later, he told me he loved me. And I believed him. We got married 2 years after we met. Small ceremony. Nothing flashy. My sister Sophia was my maid of honor. She cried more than I did that day. I thought it was because she was happy for me. Now, I don't know what to think. After the wedding, life moved fast. We got a small house. I worked late. Josh started a freelance business from home. I thought we made a great team. I handled the long hours, and he took care of everything at home. That's what I kept telling myself, even when he started pulling away. I remember the first time something felt off. I had just gotten a big promotion. I came home buzzing with excitement, hoping to celebrate. Josh congratulated me with a distracted smile and went back to his laptop. That night, I cried in the bathroom. Not because he didn't care, but because I convinced myself he was just tired. I didn't want to admit that he hadn't looked at me the same in weeks. And then there was Sophia. She was always around, always calling, always visiting. I loved having her nearby at first. Josh and Sophia got along well, too well sometimes. They'd joke with each other, laugh at things I didn't understand. I thought it was sweet. I thought, this is what family's supposed to be like? I was proud that the two people I loved most got along so easily. One night, a couple years ago, I came home early from work. I remember walking in and hearing them laughing together in the kitchen. I peeked in and saw Sophia tossing flour at Josh while they were baking. He wiped it off her cheek and she playfully swatted him with a spoon. It looked innocent. It felt innocent. But now, it replays in my head with a new tone. Other things, too. Little things. Like how Josh always made sure Sophia had a ride home. How he defended her when she messed up. How he once said she gets him in a way most people don't. Back then, I smiled at that. Now I want to scream. There were even nights I'd find Sophia asleep on the couch after a late dinner. Josh would cover her with a blanket. Once I came out of the bathroom and saw them sitting on the porch, whispering. They went silent when I stepped out. Josh said they were talking about a surprise birthday gift for me. I believed them. I believed everything. But now I realize the lies didn't start today. They didn't start last week. They've been growing for years, hiding in plain sight. And I was too blind to see. I don't know what hurts more, the betrayal itself, or the fact that I let it happen right in front of me. 6 years. 6 years of sharing a home, of building dreams, of planning a future. All while the man I loved was slipping further away and slipping into my sister's arms. And I never saw it coming. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe a part of me always knew. But buried it so deep, I forgot to protect myself. Now the truth is out. And all I'm left with are questions. Did he ever really love me? When did it start? And how long has she been pretending to be my sister? I used to think Sophia had the sweetest smile. People always said she had that glow, the kind that made you feel warm, like you were safe just standing next to her. She smiled through everything. Family dinners, birthdays, breakups, even funerals. That smile never left her face. But now, I can't stop wondering what was behind it. I've been replaying every moment we ever shared, every hug, every inside joke, and that smile is always there, always soft, always bright. Now it feels like a mask. I keep going back to last Christmas. We hosted dinner at our house, just a small gathering. Mom, Dad, Josh, Sophia, and me. We all wore matching pajamas, took silly photos by the fireplace. Sophia brought a chocolate cake she baked herself and bragged about how Josh helped her decorate it. They laughed like it was some big secret. Back then, I thought it was cute. But now, I can't unsee the way he looked at her across the table. How her hand brushed his arm when she passed him the wine. How his eyes followed her when she stood to grab more napkins. I thought it was just sibling-like closeness. I told myself I was lucky to have a sister and a husband who got along so well, but maybe I was just naive. Even earlier than that, my birthday last year. I had to work late, and Josh said he'd planned something special. When I got home, there were candles lit and dinner on the table. Sophia was there too, wearing a dress she'd borrowed from me, standing beside Josh like they were co-hosts. They'd cooked the meal together. My favorite dish. She made the dessert. They sang to me. And when I looked at the two of them clapping and laughing side by side, I felt like the guest. That night, I went to bed early. Told them I was tired. I remember hearing them still in the kitchen, laughing softly while they cleaned up. I thought, wow, I have the most caring sister and husband in the world. But now I know better. Even when I got my promotion, the one I worked so hard for, Sophia was the first to hug me. She jumped up and down like a kid, cheering loud enough for the whole office to hear when she came to visit. Josh just smiled and said he was proud, but her eyes, now I realize she looked too proud. Like my success meant something more than just celebration. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was competition. Or maybe she just liked watching me shine, knowing she was holding on to my shadow. And then there was the weekend trip to the cabin. Josh had planned it for the two of us, or so he said. But at the last minute, Sophia just happened to be free and wanted to tag along. I said yes, of course. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister, my best friend, my blood. We played board games, roasted marshmallows, and stayed up talking by the fire. I fell asleep early that second night. When I woke up, the house was quiet. I figured they had both gone to bed. But now, looking back, I wonder, were they really in separate rooms? Did I ever truly know what went on when I wasn't looking? Because Sophia was always there. Every milestone, every fight, every quiet evening, her smile was in the background. Her voice filled our home. She knew everything about me, and about Josh. And I let her in. I trusted her. I let her cry on my shoulder, sleep in my guest room, borrow my clothes, and share my husband's attention, thinking it was harmless. But it wasn't harmless. It was calculated. It was constant. And it was right under my nose. Now, when I close my eyes, I see that smile again. Not sweet, not warm, but sharp. Sharp enough to cut through everything I thought was real. I don't know when she stopped being my sister and started being whatever she is now. But I do know one thing. She never once looked guilty. And that smile? It never left her face. I didn't go home that night. After what I saw, Josh, my husband, in our bed with Sophia, my own sister, I couldn't bring myself to walk back through that door. I drove around aimlessly for hours. No music, no talking, just the sound of my own breathing and the crushing weight of betrayal pressing on my chest like a stone. Eventually, I ended up at a small motel on the edge of town. I paid cash. No questions asked. I didn't even take off my shoes when I got into the room. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall like it might blink first. I didn't sleep. All night, my mind was a tangled mess of thoughts and images. Josh's voice, Sophia's laugh, their faces twisted in fake affection. My hands itched to do something, anything. I felt powerless, like a ghost floating outside my own life. By morning, I knew I couldn't just sit there. I needed proof. Cold, hard proof. Because as much as it tore me apart, some part of me still hoped, still wanted to believe I had misunderstood, that I had imagined it, that maybe there was some logical explanation, something less horrible than the truth clawing at my gut. So I waited. Later that day, I called Josh and told him I was staying at a friend's house for the night. I made up a story about feeling sick and needing time to myself. He didn't question it. He sounded normal, like nothing had happened. I knew then he had no idea I saw them. That was my opening. That evening, I drove back home, parked down the street, and waited until I saw Josh leave the house. He was in a rush, dressed casually, heading out like it was just another day. Maybe to see her, maybe to meet someone else, I didn't care. I slipped into the house with the spare key I had in my glove compartment. The silence was deafening. Everything looked exactly the same. But I felt like a stranger in my own home. I walked straight to the bedroom. Nothing was out of place. The sheets were clean, the pillows fluffed, like nothing had happened. Like my marriage wasn't bleeding to death right there under that neatly folded comforter. His phone wasn't in the room, but I remembered something, a second device he used for work, an old backup phone he sometimes kept in his nightstand drawer. I opened it. Bingo. The phone lit up with no password. He never bothered to secure it, probably because he never thought I'd check it. And just like that, the truth spilled out. Messages. Hundreds of them. All from Sophia. Text after text, photos, voice notes. I didn't have to scroll far. There were "I miss you" messages from 2 days ago, pictures of takeout food they ate together while I was away for work, and conversations that made my skin crawl. "She has no idea, Elal. You were amazing last night. I still can't walk right. I wish we didn't have to sneak around." And then the worst one. A text from Sophia, sent just last week. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember I had him first. Had him first? What did that even mean? My hands were shaking as I kept scrolling. There were messages dating back over a year, talks of plans, hidden meetups, jokes at my expense, discussions about holidays, pretending like they hadn't already decided who would be where. Everything I thought I controlled, they already had covered. Tears blurred my vision as I dropped the phone back into the drawer. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overthinking. It was real. The betrayal, the lies, the affair. And now, I had proof. Not just suspicion, not just a memory of what I saw through a half-open door. Now I had time-stamped, undeniable evidence of everything. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, letting the anger settle like dust in my lungs. Then I picked up my phone, and I started taking screenshots, because this wasn't over. I didn't think it could hurt more, but it did. Finding those texts between Josh and Sophia shattered whatever pieces of my heart were still clinging together. Still, I needed more than proof. I needed clarity, answers, closure. So I went to the only person who might know something, Mrs. Carter, my mother-in-law. She and I had never been close. We were polite, but I always felt like I was under silent judgment whenever I was around her. Like I wasn't quite good enough for her son, even though she never said it outright. Still, I showed up at her house the next morning, unannounced. She opened the door in her robe, surprised but not exactly pleased to see me. "Lena," she said flatly, "is everything all right?" I forced a smile, though my chest was tight. "Can I come in, just for a minute?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Sure." The house smelled like mint tea and furniture polish, exactly how I remembered it. I sat on the edge of the couch while she made herself a cup of tea, not bothering to offer me one. Finally, I just said it. "I know about Josh. And Sophia." Her hand paused in midair. She didn't flinch. She didn't spill a drop. Slowly, she set the cup down and turned toward me. "So," she said, "you found out." I blinked. "Wait, you knew?" She nodded, calm as ever. "Not everything, but enough." I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "And you didn't say anything?" She didn't look guilty. If anything, she looked annoyed. "I warned Josh when he started getting too close to her, but he never listened, said it wasn't a big deal. Then, one day, she started showing up more often, sitting closer at dinner, helping him with errands. You were always working, always busy." I clenched my fists. "So you just watched it happen?" "I tried to talk to him," she said with a shrug. "But let's be honest, Lena. You were never what I pictured for him. I wanted someone who'd put him first. Someone who wasn't always chasing career promotions and working late into the night." My chest burned. "Are you seriously blaming me?" She looked straight at me. "I'm just saying, men don't cheat unless something's missing at home." I stood up, my voice shaking. Nothing was missing. I gave that man everything. My time, my trust, my support. And Sophia? She's my sister, my blood. She didn't just betray me. She destroyed our entire family. Mrs. Carter gave a tight smile. She was always around, always cared about him. Maybe too much, but at least she was there. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You knew, I whispered. You saw it happening, and instead of warning me, you let it grow. You let it happen under your nose, in your own family, and said nothing. What would you have done? She asked. Left him? Broken up the family? I stared at her in stunned silence. Yes, that's exactly what I would have done. Because I have dignity. Because I have boundaries. Because I'm not okay being the last to know while everyone else plays house with my life. Without another word, I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just walked away from that cold, bitter woman and her twisted logic. As I sat in my car, I realized something. This betrayal wasn't just about Josh and Sophia. It went deeper. It was a web, woven by lies, knotted by silence, and held up by people who chose comfort over truth. I looked back at the house one last time. I thought about all the dinners we shared there, the family game nights, the holidays, all fake, all while she watched the knife being pushed into my back and did nothing. But that's okay, because now I knew who I was dealing with, and I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I planned it down to the smallest detail. The wine, the table setting, the guest list, even the playlist in the background. Everything was soft, calm, familiar, like nothing had changed, just like they had pretended. So now it was my turn. I invited Josh, Sophia, and Mrs. Carter to dinner, told them I wanted to clear the air and have a family evening together, just like old times. Josh sounded relieved on the phone. He said he was happy I was finally feeling better. Sophia texted a heart emoji. Of course she did. The moment they walked in, I smiled. Big, bright, like everything was fine. Josh kissed me on the cheek. I didn't flinch. Sophia hugged me tight like she always had, like her hands hadn't been all over my husband just days ago. Mrs. Carter gave me her usual cool nod, like she was only there out of obligation. We sat down at the table, and I passed around the dishes I had cooked myself. Josh complimented the pasta. Sophia said she missed my cooking. I laughed and told her I missed her too. Lies, all of it. But necessary lies. Because tonight, they weren't going to see my pain. They were going to see my power. We were halfway through dinner when I cleared my throat and said, "You know, it's funny how people always think secrets stay buried. But eventually they come out, don't they?" Josh paused mid-bite. What do you mean? I looked directly at him, then at Sophia. I mean how easy it is to smile while stabbing someone in the back. Or, in my case, the heart. Sophia shifted in her seat. Lena. What's going on? I reached under the table and pulled out a small stack of printed screenshots. Remember this text, Josh? I asked, sliding the top page across to him. He stared at it. His face went pale. Sophia leaned over and froze. I continued. Or this one, Sophia. The one where you said you had him first, that was a nice touch, real poetic. Mrs. Carter looked between them, then at me. I told you I knew, I said to her calmly. You just didn't know what I'd do about it. Josh opened his mouth. Lena, it's not what... Don't, I cut him off, sharp and cold. Don't insult me with lies now. Not after everything. Sophia's voice cracked. Lena, please, I didn't mean... You didn't mean to get caught, I snapped. You didn't mean for me to walk in that day, that's what you didn't mean. The room went silent. You could have heard the tick of the clock in the hallway. Mrs. Carter finally spoke. You're making a scene, Lena. I turned to her slowly. No. You made this scene. When you chose to protect a lie instead of your family. When you decided silence was more convenient than truth. Josh stood up, panic in his eyes. Lena, can we just talk about this? Privately? I stood too. Oh, now you want privacy? You should have thought about that before you let my sister into our bed, into our lives, into everything. Sophia's eyes were wet now. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at her, and for a moment I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just disappointment. You didn't just hurt me, I said quietly. You destroyed every good memory we ever shared, every piece of trust, every moment I thought was real. They stood there, all three of them, unsure of what to say. So I smiled, the same polite, calm smile they'd all worn so easily. I invited you here tonight not to beg, not to fight. I just wanted you to see the difference between who I was and who I am now. Josh took a step forward. Lena, what are you going to do? I walked to the kitchen, picked up my purse, and grabbed the folder inside. I placed it gently on the table. Divorce papers, I said. Signed. And don't worry, I've already filed. You'll be served officially next week. Sophia gasped. Mrs. Carter's lips tightened. Josh looked like he might collapse. But I didn't care. This wasn't revenge. This was truth. And I was finally done pretending everything was fine. I walked into the courtroom with my head high and my heart steady. It had been months since that dinner, since the confrontation, since the last time I saw Josh, Sophia, or Mrs. Carter in person. But today wasn't about emotion. Today was about justice. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. The case had drawn attention, not just because of the infidelity, but because of what they'd done after I left. Josh and Sophia hadn't just betrayed me. They had tried to take everything from me. After I filed for divorce, I discovered that Josh had been secretly transferring money from our joint accounts into a private one he shared with Sophia. He'd also sold a piece of my late father's land that was in my name, forging my signature to do it. And guess who helped him? His dear mother, Mrs. Carter. Sophia had moved into my old home like she'd earned it, like she belonged there. And together, the three of them thought they could erase me. But I wasn't the woman they thought I was anymore. I hired the best lawyer in the state. I dug through every file, every account, every message. And now, the truth was all neatly laid out for the judge, black and white, undeniable. Josh sat across from me at the defendant's table, his once confident face now pale and drawn. Sophia sat beside him, trying to look composed, but her fingers trembled. Mrs. Carter was seated in the gallery, her lips thin and arms crossed, as if she were still above it all. The judge called order and asked me to speak. I stood slowly, walked to the front, and took a deep breath. My name is Lena Carter, I said. I was married to the defendant, Joshua Carter, for 12 years. I gave up my career to support his business. I cared for his family. I trusted him and my sister with everything. I paused, letting the silence stretch. And in return, they stole from me. They manipulated documents, moved funds without my consent, and falsified my signature to sell a property that belonged to me. They committed fraud, and they did it with full knowledge and intent. Josh's lawyer tried to object, but the judge overruled him. I continued. Your Honor, this isn't just about a marriage ending. It's about being treated like I didn't matter, like I was disposable. But I am not disposable, and I'm here to prove that. I stepped back and returned to my seat. The judge reviewed the evidence, pages of bank records, testimony from the notary who confirmed the signature was forged, emails between Josh and his mother discussing how to handle Lena quietly, Sophia's own texts about how I wouldn't notice. It was all there. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was firm. Mr. Carter, Ms. Sophia Morgan, and Mrs. Lorraine Carter, the court finds sufficient evidence of fraud, conspiracy to defraud, and forgery. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Lena Carter. Full restitution is to be made immediately. Property must be returned to Ms. Carter's name, and damages awarded in the amount of $850,000. I exhaled slowly. Josh's mouth fell open. Sophia looked like she might faint. Mrs. Carter's eyes finally lost their steel. But it wasn't just about the money. It was the truth, spoken in a court of law, on record, for the world to hear. As the bailiff escorted them out of the courtroom, Josh turned to look at me one last time. There was no anger in his eyes, just regret. Too late. Sophia didn't look back at all. And Mrs. Carter? She passed by me stiffly, but I caught the flicker in her expression. Shock, and maybe, for the first time, respect. I stepped outside into the bright sun, feeling the warmth on my skin. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just stood there, free. Not broken, not bitter, just done. I had lost a husband, a sister, and a mother-in-law. But I had found something far more powerful. Myself. And I wasn't going to lose her ever again.